people are really blown away by your in-ring intensity, I think. Is that a good way to say it?
I would definitely say so. I think that's a fair assessment. One thing that I really have always tried to do is create an emotional engagement and a response to understand the purpose of what we're really doing out there. And for me, it's always been, to elicit emotion and engage people with the art of storytelling, the oldest stories in the world, light versus dark, good versus evil, and so forth.
With that, are you inspired by certain movies? Is that where this came from?
I think it was just a combination of coincidences. Growing up, being, just engaging with different forms of entertainment, from professional wrestling. Like, very first match I ever recall seeing was, Warrior pinning Hogan. I mean, I may have saw other matches before that, but that was ingrained. That was ingrained in me. And I grew up in that time when 80s horror films and early 90s horror films, they didn't make sense, and that was unsettling. Remember how things used to be?
Yeah.
And I think that really scared people because, in life, the things that really bother us are the things that create uncertainty. It's like you've been walking down the street your entire life, and you know exactly where everything is, and then one day you walk down it and everything is different. It's just something as simple as that. It freaks people out. They feel displaced. So I've always tried to create that sort of atmosphere in what I've been doing.
Were there certain horror movies that you were really drawn to?
It's very weird. So at the risk of sounding totally insane, I
think it might be too late for that.
It's too late. It's just work. It's kind of like, I remember seeing snippets of films I wasn't supposed to be watching as a kid, things that were super graphic and insane. One of the movies, and I know this film and I've seen it and I love it, The Reanimator. I don't know if everyone's going to know that one, but I mean, there was just such graphic horror in those films and television shows, and it was just insane and dark and illogical. And I feel like that was sort of a satire or like a mirror image of what bothers people in real life. Like, people who are illogical are always the ones who disturb people. And then there's also people who are very logical that just have their own arbitration of what's right and wrong, and they will do wrong to others through justification. That also scares people too. So,
well, I think it's interesting that you talk about storytelling, because obviously wrestling is all about storytelling. But I feel like a lot of what you do in the ring, and especially in your promos, has like a film aspect to it. Is that something that you intentionally, worked into it?
100%. When I was breaking in, I would kind of assess and look at what was going on a wrestling card or a television program. And sometimes the matches and the stories blend together because the parallels are too similar, right?
Sure.
So I thought, on the independence, while I had the freedom, if I could come up with creative things and variances that felt different from the rest of the things people were seeing, that was going to be a great way to stand out. Not only that, it was my own individual way of contributing differently to a show versus everyone else. Why would I be valuable in a show? Well, I'm going to give people something that can't be emulated or done by anyone else. And that, I thought, was the best way to create value, from a sincere place,
Did you have any aspirations of maybe going into acting if wrestling wasn't a thing?
100%. I've always wanted to be an actor since I was a kid. I dabbled in theater a little bit in my teens. Always also wanted to be a professional wrestler too.
Sure.
And then growing up in combat arts and martial arts and sports and stuff like that, coming from a family that was just always involved with that, I was very comfortable in conflict. And so, once you find out you're good at conflict, you can kind of get lost in that. And I just, everyone always asks me, would you fight pro MMA? I had moved to Las Vegas to fight pro MMA. I was dabbling in that for a little while, but over time, you realize that there's certain things that bring you fulfillment. There's certain, things that you're good at, and there's certain things that you want to pursue. And I just didn't love combat martial arts enough to pursue it as a career, but all of that, I think, just kind of wrapped in one big bow in that general direction, kind of put me on course for this. But acting in the films, movies, TV shows, 100%.
Are you still dabbling in MMA, at least for fitness or anything like that?
Yeah. That's just a way of life for me. So I'm always training recreationally, always. I can't stop. I'll go crazy. It's a form of therapy. Really anything. Like, I'm out of Vegas, so anytime I could ever get a chance to go into Vanderlei Silva's school, Fight Team, or Syndicate Mixed Martial Arts, I'll go in, and and just roll around and do what I do. Or if I can ever find a heavy bag, I'll do the routines I grew up doing there as well. So I need that. I need that in my life.
Who were some of the wrestlers that when you were growing up, I mean, you mentioned the first match you ever saw, but who were the people that really inspired you to want to watch?
You know, a lot of people will always throw out one name for a political reason. Like a lot of the guys in the business will say that their favorite wrestler was a specific person because they're afraid they're going to get heat from someone who's above them being like, why would you mention that guy's name? He never drew any money, you know, but it's like, I really had a ton of favorites, but I mean, not to be redundant, I mentioned Warrior. Mm-hmm. Like as a child, I had a manic amount of energy, and I just
you don't anymore.
Well, more so as a child, believe it or not. I could scale this wall.
That's impressive.
Yeah. So I mean, I just identified with high energy characters, and back then, 80s and 90s, there was a lot of high energy stuff. Everyone was screaming. Like there was no.
That was every promo. Yes.
Yeah, there was no such thing as an indoor voice in pro wrestling. It didn't
No.
exist. You know. So basically, yeah. I mean, Warrior probably. As I grew up, I had new favorites: Gary Albright, Dr. Death, guys that had an amateur background because. I mean, I was trying to decipher at a certain point as I grew up what was real and what was, not. You know, the chatter begins at a certain point out of your adolescence as to what was legit, what wasn't. And I grew up around wrestlers. So then when you learn to start identifying footwork and how they're grabbing people, a gable grip or they're getting their hips under people, suddenly like a drop kick off the top rope doesn't look as effective as like, souffling somebody on the top of their head and then you're proceeding to soccer kick them in the face like a Japanese match. So I had a lot of influences in that direction. Then later on, I really, really, really got into character work. His name is not mentioned enough, but Sean O'Hare, he was amazing. Like I literally wear that coat down to the ring as a nod to him. A lot of people don't know that, but Sean O'Hare was immensely inspirational. Brian Pillman, just a broad spectrum. I don't have one guy. Everyone wants me to say, Ricky Dragon or, Steamboat, Flair. I mean, everybody wants you to say those. And those guys were incredible.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, a lot of us have jobs right now because of what they did and how they secured, a residual demographic coming to those shows where they sold out buildings, of thousands upon thousands of people. But I just enjoyed so much across the boards.
And I feel like it wouldn't be fair, like you said, to just name one person. Anyone watching this right now does not just have one favorite wrestler.
No.
Throughout the course of your life, there's been different people that you've been drawn to. So I appreciate you being able to go, yeah, this is the way it should be.
Sure.
When you say when you were younger, you were able to deal with conflict, is that with words or is that with using your fists?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was a weird transition. So like every kid, I grew up in an age where bullying was rampant. It wasn't assessed.
You got bullied?
A little bit.
I can't see someone bullying you.
Everybody got kind of caught a beating growing up. And I didn't take to it as traumatically as some other people because like I was involved with amateur wrestling and boxing and stuff. But like I never knew what I could get away with and what I could do because my father would always be like, hey, like, if somebody comes at you the wrong way, then put them in the right direction. My mother would always be like, hey, listen, like, let's not get kicked out of school. So, I mean, I learned how to work from a diplomatic angle, and then I learned how to work in the angle where diplomacy fails. So I don't know, I just turned out that way, I guess, from that type of nurturing.
You seem to be so much like, not that other wrestlers aren't, but you're so well spoken. Is this from your upbringing? Is it from your education? What do you attribute it to?
Naturally. Growing up, I was a kid stuck in a state of avoidance. I'll give you some stuff here I've never talked about.
Okay.
And a lot of people live in different states of avoidance, and my communication was horrendous. I didn't express things enough verbally, I was very introverted, and I still think I am an introvert. I'm not naturally an extrovert. I can do it. It's just not my natural place to be.
You're an introverted extrovert.
I guess. And I don't like not being good at things that I want to be good at. So obviously communication, is effective in all aspects of life. So I just chose to get better at communicating, and I think I just try to come from an empathetic place with that. That if I kind of speak to people on that level, then that trepidation to be that way kind of goes away.
So what was it that you were avoiding? I mean, if you're willing to speak about it.
I just keep my cards close to my chest. I'm just naturally always in that place. I'm more comfortable just, I don't know, in my own skin, not putting my energy out there. I like to conserve it.
Has being in the ring allowed you to be maybe a more open version of yourself?
Again, at the risk of sounding totally nuts. So, like, I'm not Killer Kross, but Killer Kross is definitely a real thing. And I think people would agree that when they go to the shows, they're getting something very visceral, very carnal, and very real in the way that we can use that word for this out of him. So we put him away until the music and the lights start.
But there's got to be some sort of crossover, some sort of bleed over between him and you.
I would definitely say the development of that character comes from a lot of things that I've gotten from the pro wrestling audience. Like, the Toll Man was a name that I got for a long time, and that basically was pertaining to a promo that I cut at the beginning of my career. And I said, all of these guys running around, trying to play the role, like overgrown children masquerading around as adults, I said, something of that nature. And I said, well, when I'm around, they're going to have to pay the toll. Had a little rhyme to it, so people started calling him the Toll Man.
Yeah.
People started calling me the People's Executioner. People started calling me the Anti-Machine, all this different type of stuff. And if that's what they're calling me and that's what they want me to be, then I might as well embrace that. So the development of Killer Kross came from that. And then, like I said, the inspirations from entertainment and art and stuff like that. So that's what I think.
Well, I mean, you think you would know better than anybody.
Let's hope so.
Is this the part where you don't want to sound insane again?
Just don't ask me about my psychological evaluations.
Welcome to my brand new YouTube channel, CVV Clips. And as the name suggests, the clips from my longer conversations are going to live here. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on those little nuggets of goodness that we're going to have here.